You good? You good? Go ahead.
Oh
All
yeah,
right, man. What's the greatest problem facing the black community today?
the greatest problem facing the black community today, man. I'm gonna be blunt, man. Black men, and it's black men.
Say more words. Hey, you came out swinging.
Hey dog, man. Because it is black men, man. I mean, black men who don't, like I said, black men who don't like black people, man. Who don't understand that we have to build a collective. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't they a lot of times, one issue with black people that we have, man, we put way too much stock in celebrity, right? Into black capitalism, right? We put way too much stock in extraordinary Negroes, right? Because we see that we see individuals, we always like, oh well, well, I'm gonna get it like, like Jay or Kanye. And it's like, no, you ain't gonna get it like them, man. You know what I'm saying? You need to get it where you're at, dog.
Well. When you think about it, man, if you for us to name extraordinary people, when we say extraordinary, we're just talking about extraordinary being we think are dope people. We can name
No,
people outside of entertainment.
no, that's not what I'm talking about. When I say extraordinary Negroes, we all it's like Black History Month, right? We're always pointing out the
I know
first,
what you're talking about.
and we
What I'm
say
saying
that.
is
That's what I'm saying.
we're able to point to just whoever that, like, that person's dope, this person's dope, like
Mhm,
every book y'all pull off the shelf type stuff, right?
mhm,
It's like people get caught up in the celebrity because we don't put value in these other things
mhm,
outside of what these celebrities do.
I only have one caveat.
mhm,
I only have one caveat, and I only have one really thing that I feel that is important to move forward. Is that any time we talk about black people as a monolithic group, when we say black people, it's a collective. Because I find that one of the things that we do is we speak on behalf of each other like
mhm,
nobody else.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
I don't think it's fortunate for us to do that because that's not what white people do. And I'm not saying we have to do it to not be like white people. I'm saying we do it because we have to learn that you don't get power by talking about your own people. Now we have to talk about each other because we have problems. But we
Mhm.
know the forum for talking about each other is how they do it.
Right, right, and
And
that's
yeah,
go
and,
ahead, go ahead.
and the only reason that I say this is because I think that we get to a point where if you talk about us as a monolith, but
Mhm,
you don't talk about the culture that made us here as a monolith, is disingenuous because we don't get to determine what made us the way we are. Now
mhm.
we do insofar as what we have not been conditioned to do. Because I agree with you. I think that black men are the biggest target
Yeah,
of
most
our
definitely.
system, but I would say who made them a target? Because
Mhm.
who benefits from black men not walking in black unity, authority, etc.? Because
White man.
who said yes? Who said that black unity is the greatest threat to America?
Yeah, that was dang, who said that? That was Hoover.
Hoover.
Yeah, that
He
was Hoover.
said that us being unified is the greatest domestic threat to America.
Oh yeah, the director of FBI said
So,
that, and
so if you,
he said that around a specific time when he was
Black
investigating
Panther
Black
or the
Panthers.
Black
Like,
Panthers,
Yeah, when
because if you start
oh, go
this,
ahead, go ahead.
but if you start to see us in this light, what I find out is they know something that we don't know
Mm.
about us. They know something about us that we don't know.
Yeah, I mean
um,
they've been studying black people since the invention of the FBI. You dig what I'm saying?
right.
But
Yeah,
I would say my only thing I disagree with. Well, like I think that line where it's like, oh, we're not a monolith. Yeah, yeah, I understand that. You know what I'm saying? But I think it get used against us as well. You know what I mean? It gets you.
100%.
Yeah, it gets used against us. to create divisiveness, right? Because now, an individual like Candace Owens can come in and say, "Oh, well, I'm not part of the black culture, and this is why," and this is why, and that those talking points that she lists off, it gets used against us by non-black people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
not to our face.
Oh, no, not to our face. But you know what they do though? You know what they do, man? One thing I've realized, man, they'll get on Twitter, they'll put on black avatars. Oh, man, they'll get on Facebook, they'll create Facebook groups, and that's how they communicate to black people. And we know we found that out during the 2020 election.
Yeah.
That there were and also you had an elected official who didn't log into his black burner account, and he logged in. He was a white guy, and he
Oh,
made a Twitter post like, "Oh, I'm a black gay man, and this is why I don't like black people," or something like that. And they were like, "Dog, you didn't even log into your burner account."
oh yeah. I just find that the strategy that they built to classify us all has to be deconstructed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I don't have a problem about talking about black people as a group, saying we and us. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gonna caveat it with the condition or circumstances that created it. For example, you had men, black men, whose only job was to produce more black men on a stud farm. They were literally like horses, and they were
like
bred.
pit bulls.
Yes. So don't you think that culturally that damages you? That trauma epigenetically affects you, so that's where the pimp culture came from.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
The culture came from that. So to not talk about that, and then talk about black men, or like if I was a black slave, I had to watch my wife get beat and emasculated while I stood there powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that black women have resentment about us from that? That we couldn't help them in their bondage?
Right,
Right.
Oh, it's most definitely trauma passed down from that generational. You know what I mean?
Even today, even today, I'm talking about there's a resentment that you can't be a provider, protector, nurturer.
Right. But let me let me that in itself, and so I see what's going on here, even though the first statement was the first question, the first statement came out swinging on both, right? And so I think the thought of black men, let's just say you said black men were the problem.
Who, me?
That was the words, right?
Yeah,
The black
that was me. No, it's just that no, there are just to me
the
too many.
crux, the crux.
Well, not the crux, because it's not all right. It's only a sect of us who are way more
What I'm saying,
interested
Tay,
way more interested in patriarchy than they are in unity. You
for
dig what
sure,
I'm
for
saying?
sure. And so that's to point out. That's to point out what we think is wrong,
Mhm.
right? I would say the bigger thought is that the black man is the crux of all life because being the man, right? So you can say Jesus, but if Jesus is from where he's from, he's a black man, right? Like, the man himself being the head of the household, right? Being the wise one, because the woman being of mother earth and things of that nature, not to get that far into gender roles, but to identify that the man is always going to be left with the burden of responsibility, right? Like the burden of responsibility seems to always fall on the black man in society, right? Because when we talk about black power, who's going to be at the head of that? A black man. But guess who's always failing? A black man. Guess who doesn't have the right tools? A black man. Guess who is always looked at to do something better, but is always ridiculed by the black woman? A black man. And
Well, I
guess
will
where
say,
it comes from? Slavery. Guess why the black man pimps out and has no problem doing a black woman dirty? Because at the end of the day, the individualistic thing that goes into it, because a white man will do the same thing to a white woman, but in a different way, right? But the way we'll do it, it's so ingrained. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Now, I'm gonna challenge the premise of my own question. I'm going to say that my question was faulty because there's nothing wrong with us. How about that? How about there is nothing wrong with us? No, let's argue this. Let's argue that we are operating or functioning as we were designed or programmed to function, meaning that we're not malfunctioning. If a computer doesn't do what it's programmed to do, then it's malfunctioning. But if the computer, when I press the A button, if the A letter comes up, it was designed to do that.
Right.
So
No, like if you switch, if you remember them keys on the keyboard that we used to have, if you switch them,
yeah,
you just
yeah.
that's the thing, right? And so the reason you switched your original, we'll say hypothesis, or we'll call it whatever, right? Because the question was, what is, is black man the problem, right?
But
And
what's
we
the
switched
biggest
to
problem?
like,
But what's the biggest problem facing? Because I think that
He said, "What's the biggest problem we're facing?"
we're
Right?
facing, and
facing.
What we're facing.
I
Yeah.
think
and
what if what
but the only reason that I say it this way is because when we say the word problem, we automatically go solution.
negative
Solution. Yeah.
Because
solution?
we're wired that way. If I tell you something's a
Oh,
problem, you're going to automatically think, identify. But we're the only people this is done to. So, for example, if I say, "What's the biggest problem facing Hispanics today?" we don't think about Hispanics that way. We just think Hispanics or whites are whites, or but the idea of the commentary is what we've been open to. We've been
I think.
open.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
It was called at the turn of history. It was called the Negro problem.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to deal with the
How you
Negro?
gonna deal with the Negroes? Yeah, who are now. Yeah, how we gonna deal with the Negroes who are asking for? They're asking for all these things
Yeah,
because the country didn't repair us, right? That we didn't get repair, right?
that's all I was
Yeah,
getting at.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what reparations is about, right? So, but look, I mean, but my thought and what I said was it immediately. I think it was glass half full, and that's not to pat myself on the back, right? Because when I went back to think about why we were talking about what we were talking about, it was like a problem. Yeah. No, it's like
Yeah.
it's like if we're wired to do the things that we're doing, then we have to go back to the circuit board and say, hey, we need to rewire this up
Mm.
here, right? And this is intentional consciousness of thought. And so thought form goes into feeling form, and then feeling form goes into action form, right? And then you got to have these beliefs, and you got to be convicted. You got to be convicted in your change, right? And changing and
Yeah.
know that you do messed up. But the first thing to do is not to necessarily say that it's wrong or bad. It's
Yeah.
just to acknowledge it as being,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it is. I
Mm-hmm.
like this. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I like this? What am I doing about it? If I need to change it, if it's destroying my life. These are the things that my leadership theory talks about: identifying problems and issues. Because if your job is to identify problems and issues, then you don't have a problem spotting them and saying, hey, we need to do something about that. Hey, we need to do something about that. You need to make your job about identifying issues. So as a black man, you see that everywhere you turn, there's an issue, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what we have to do, just like we do as men, is compartmentalize and figure out what the problem is. All right. So we have a problem in our black consciousness with our black woman.
But
What's the problem?
who's qualified to diagnose an entire race of people? As if the idea is that we have a sickness or something inherently wrong with us. Because therein lies my challenge, is that I don't see us this way. I see us as we are all different ways. There's some people who want to integrate, go ahead. There's some people want to segregate, that's great. I support this idea that we need diversity of thought to be able to say, you don't know us well enough, white people, because I will tell you, be wary of the person who can tell you the problem but has no solution.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't
And
talk to people who come to me with problems and no solutions. I'm telling them, well, what you gonna do about it? I'm sorry, cutting you off, Tay.
yeah. No, and I was saying, to clarify, my statement a little bit, man, because it was more, it's more about, my statement was more about accountability than
Yeah,
anything, right? Right. It's speaking directly, like Dr. Khalid Muhammad would do.
yeah.
He would speak directly and say, no, this is it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, when I made that, when I make that statement, or when I say it's like, hey, it was black men who was leading the charge, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, in our communities, you know what I mean? Black men who were not only about protecting their family, they were about protecting the community. And there's just far too many black men who are not community minded in order to connect the protect the community and therefore connect the protect the culture.
Oh yeah.
So therefore, we have this individualism that's seeping through the gates,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and and
oh,
it's and it's
oh,
and it's
oh,
ending and
oh.
it's causing a lot of problems,
But
emotionally.
I only caveat that
Mhm.
there's two different issues. We have external issues and
Mhm.
internal
And
issues.
internal issues,
And,
exactly. I
and
agree.
I like to focus on the external first because
Oh
I
yeah,
believe
yeah,
that the external is the reason that you see the external issues,
yeah.
internal issues, and I think that what happens, like a Candace Owens, she
Mhm.
can tell you all of the internal issues,
Mhm.
but don't tell you why
Don't tell you why the external
that's
issues
the
external
problem.
matter.
issues, right?
I
And
The
broke
that's
her down. I broke her down on my last podcast. But
because
I broke Candace down on my last podcast because it was wrong. First of all, they're making public a beef between Candace and Kanye, between Candace and Kanye and BLM. There's a beef between them that they're just making public. All right. So that's what all that bickering is.
mhm.
And but it's on that biggest stage because it's so disgusting that everybody has to say something. But one of the things I wanted to, what I,
No. I was gonna say, like what I wanted to add is that yeah, man, like we have external issues, man. The problem and a lot of our problems is that we don't want to. We're always want to talk about the behaviors, right?
right.
We're like, oh, that's what Republicans and that's what they like to do. Oh, black on black crime. No matter how much data you present to them, that crime, if you put jobs in those area, crimes go down. You know what I'm saying? You want better
Oh,
school, get economics. People are talking about like, oh, schools are bad. Well, put give people jobs, give people more money. Then the schools won't be bad. You know what I'm
boy.
saying? The and we always focus on and the problem is that when people like Kundis Owens speak, she only speaks on the surface level issues because the surface level issues connect to people's feelings. That's why. And people don't want to go beyond their feelings, right? Because,
Oh,
if you go beyond your feelings, then
that's
get to the root of the
thinking,
problem, you have to do something about it. You
man.
know?
Let me slide in on there. So that's system two thinking, right? System two thinking is deliberate, rational thinking.
Mhm.
People don't like doing that because it takes a long time, and we're now in the internet age, and so I would say I agree. That's why you got to make your habits very good and rationally thought out. But what I wanted to say was the thing about community is we don't know community anymore because our communities that we're coming from, a lot of people aren't coming from good communities because those resources aren't there. Like if with the accelerated rate in which the population is growing and the substance of people is not becoming greater, people are becoming more materialistic and more just secular in thought. And I mean, yeah, you got people being mindful, but when you think about our community, when you go to these places of poverty, man, there's a lot of us and there's a lot of just like, oh, this is bad, right? And I say that to say, like, we see a lot of people like us who might be doing okay. We see certain people like in Sumter, like, okay. But when you think about collectively, and maybe you see it a lot, Dr. Sir, up there in Cleveland, you know what I mean? Like you see different poverty levels and different experiences. But I'm saying
Yeah.
as a collective, when you think about the greater number of black people, do you think most of us are doing well, or do you think most of us are like not even have a clue?
But I think of it different, man. I think of it that we're not talking about we're not talking about the we're using arguments that we don't use for anybody else. That is my problem. My problem is we don't talk about white on white crime. or Hispanic crime, but we'll talk about black on black crime. And so if you create an argument that's division, like how there are more poor white people in America than anybody else.
Absolutely.
There are more per capita. There are more white people on welfare. There are more white people who get government assistance. But when you hear about government assistance, it's the black person. See, that's what I mean. So it's he who
it's identification, it's propaganda.
Identity.
But it's also he who controls the argument.
Yeah.
Can determine the and so what I see happening is this. Cleveland, Ohio was one of the poorest cities in America per capita income in America. And we found out that you don't really know you're poor until you see contrast. You don't know you're poor until somebody with some stuff. So if everybody ain't got nothing, you don't think you're poor. If everybody's shoes is run down, everybody got an old car, you middle class.
Right.
And so what I see happening is that I don't like an argument that I can't unify. Mm-hmm. I want to take your argument and unify it, but I can't do that if your argument is divisible. And I can make it if I compartmentalize it. I can compartmentalize any critique you want to make on black people, but I'll just categorize it as a symptom. And if it's not, what I will tend to do is I will say, listen, then we need individuality. So, for example, when Jeffrey Dahmer was eating people, we did not call all white people cannibals. Even though we don't do that. When the kid goes, when the kid goes on a white kid goes and shoots up a school and it kills his classmates, we don't say what kind of parents did he have in that household. What we say it's society's problem. What kind of video games? What kind of
mental health issues?
Exactly, but we don't get that luxury. And so what I'm saying is, why can't we get those privileges?
Right.
Why can't we? And I think it's because if we get those privileges, then our system falls apart.
Yeah, it falls apart. And I would say that another thing is that we got to recognize terms. You know what I'm saying? Black people are in concentrated poverty. That's why you see black people together. Again, going back to the book Color of Law. And I got another book called Segregation by Design. That's why, because black people are put together. The reason, like Doc, like you're alluding to, is that when white people are in poverty, they live in rural areas, they live in stretched out areas, and they like, well, they got a trailer park and they got a trailer park. I'm not poor, you know what I'm saying? But like, no, you're poor.
You're poor.
You're poor. You just don't think so. You know what I'm saying? Or we talk about crime. Look at the difference in how we handled the crack epidemic versus the opioid epidemic, right? The crack epidemic was policing. That was the answer. Jail. That was the answer. Opioid epidemic is what? Is treatment.
Therapy.
Because who's the majority of people on opioids? You know what I mean? That number's starting to change a little bit to black people, but so yeah, man, it's how we talk and how we see each other, man. It really is how we see each other, man. And understanding that the majority of us aren't poor who are black. We just live in areas where there's resources are being drained. We talk about gentrification, and really it's not gentrification. It's really how we should be talking about it is when white people move to that area, money follows them. You dig? Money follows them. They build it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that we on the south sides of towns.
Because
if you look at how resources usually water flow from north to south. We want to contaminate it and then give it to you.
Yeah,
but even more important, I think that you're hitting it on the head, because what I start to see here is we need diversity of thought that incorporates that anybody who has an opinion about us based off of not being logical, nobody can speak for all of us.
Right.
And so since they can't, we need to speak for the people we speak for, because that's enough. Because it allows outsiders to take our arguments and apply them to us in a way that they don't do to themselves. And that's why I won't give ammunition to them, because they already don't. They know they can't say the same things about us that they said in the 60s anymore.
Yeah.
because they'd be blatantly racist.
Yeah.
Right. Racism changed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what they do is they like, oh, well, I can't say it, but I'm a hire this person over here who's going to
Yeah.
say it for me. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hire this person that looks exactly like you to
Yeah.
say it for me. People forget about Michelle Malkin. Michelle Malkin was a Filipino lady who used to
Yeah.
show up on Fox News and would demonize people of color all the time.
Oh
She would.
yeah.
She was a Candace Owens before there was a Candace Owens, and do it all the
Yeah.
time, and realize that that was the formula that they use. You know what I mean? Coming out of the, and then here's the other thing that people don't understand. During the MLK, when the FBI wanted to discredit Martin Luther King, they hired a black pastor. This black pastor at the time was one of the most prominent preachers on the radio. He was one of the like originators of preaching on the radio. I can't remember his name right now. It's escaping me. But he was preaching on the radio. So they hired this man or gave this man money so that he would speak ill of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. You know what I mean? A black man at that. You dig what I'm saying?
And we know that the first FBI agent that was black was hired to infiltrate Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey, yeah.
Yeah, and so we understand that there's going to be a position in white supremacy for black people who are compliant and not want to challenge it. But what I see happening is the strategy is only effective insofar as it works. So we can distance ourselves from ideology that is not favorable because, like I said, we're not doing it. We're not speaking on Hispanic people as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we do ourselves a discredit when we talk about ourselves as a collective without it only insofar as it connects us to what we all have in common. We live in white supremacy. Every black person in America, whether you know your role or don't know your role, you live under a system of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
In some form or fashion, whether you're part of it or you are a victim of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I talk about black people, I say it in as far as that we need unification or solidarity, meaning I need to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be as quiet as a white person when they see a black person get killed. You know, because they can go quiet all at the same time. Shh, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Because we know if we talk about it, it becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
do something about it.
Yeah, and that's what I see happening. I just think that we are having to stop being physicians or doctors about our own issues because we're still victims. And nobody with a gunshot wound is going to be coming and operating on their own leg.
Yeah, but I think that we, because of how we operate, right? Black people live around other black people.
Yeah.
That is why you hear the "we" is right, because whether we do it subconsciously. I think, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then when other black peoples come to America, they live around black people. You know what I mean? The black people that's already here. You dig? And I think that is part of the reason why.
If done in a positive way. So, for example, if you speak to 10 to 12 people in a homogenous group, you won't get any new data. If I ask 10 black people one question, by the time I get to that 10th person, I should just be hearing a repeat of one of those answers. Because what has happened is that we don't use the same paradigm for the positive. You ever notice that? We only speak monolithically about a negative, not as an affirmation. And I think that will go a long way to say there are things that you don't say about us, anybody. So, so regardless of your color, if you Candace, Kanye, whatever your color is, we don't say this about black people in this way. We don't talk about the fact that if you look at like Candace don't talk about abortion, right? She's always talking about abortion in our community. And I find that number to be so interesting when you look at during the mid 20th century, a lot of black people chose not to bring children into this world.
Right.
They self-castrated. They self did it because they said, I will not raise a child in this environment. I'm not going to raise a child in poverty like I was raised in poverty. I'm just not going to do it. And one of the things that they never realized is they never fundamentally dealt with the disparity of the treatment that we got from the health system.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
Oh, that's still a thing right now. I just got a notification. I mean, consider the source for whatever it is, but it was CNN, and it said the birth rate of black kids to black women is 4 times, the mortality rate is 4 times higher or whatnot. The death rate is higher than white women. And it goes to show how the healthcare system, how doctors, how black people in the medical field were considered and treated as like we had a higher pain tolerance.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, oh, you ain't really that sick. Right. And that's why the opioid, right? Somebody's in Ohio and can talk about it. Right. The opioid thing popped off like that. And then we was like, opioid. Like, you remember the crack epidemic?
Hey, that
Like,
saved
go
black
watch
people.
New Jack
That
City.
mantra of black people tolerate more pain saved black people because
we were getting
they didn't give us the opioids exactly. They didn't give us the opioids. So that's what we
But that's the chickens coming back home to roost.
Yeah, but so I think that we look at this idea of genocide, and I think that we become technological with it now. Like, genocide don't mean we got to just kill everybody really quickly. It's this idea of, we talk about white replacement, like the birth rate, right? So we understand that in 20 years, this country will not be predominantly white. We all get that. But the question then becomes is, do you run into the South African apartheid system? Because it ain't about how many white people it is, it's how many resources you control.
Yeah,
because
control. Right.
Because in South Africa, 10% of the white people control 90% of everybody else, black. So it don't matter. And so
control the economics.
So economics, and I think that's one of the things we talk about black power, or to the idea of solidarity, is that we have been conditioned not to trust each other.
Yeah.
Manumission laws.
That's one of the things that we had.
No snitching. I said no snitching.
Well, meritorious manumission, meaning that if I snitched on you, I can get my sentence reduced.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like
that's how you got off. Didn't that how you got off the plantation too?
Yeah. If I knew that Jim Bob was running away tonight, and I told on him, I'm gonna get another piece of chicken, and I might get released from my bondage.
I get released.
And so we have never developed a code to fix this issue, because if they're going to offer me probation for telling on you, then I'm not going to do 25 years. That's why I talked. I don't know if you got the Nelly Fuller, the code.
Mm-hmm. I gotta get it.
I got that code because we've never developed a systemic process of dealing with racism in America.
There's no point in it. Again, and that's why again, the premises was me challenging black men, because there are just too many of us who are finding their place within white supremacy, right? Like, if I find my place, I'm gonna get it. Like you saying, I'm gonna get a bigger butter biscuit, right? I'm gonna get my freedom. Yeah, I'm gonna get my freedom. So you know what I'm saying. So a lot of this talk about telling people, like, what I mean, like, I heard somebody, one of my friends, but was talking about, one of my friends was talking about going back. I'm like, going back to what? Going back to what? No, there's no people on this planet who went back. So why do you want black people to go back? Go back to what exactly? But that's this mindset, right? This mindset of going back. You know what I'm saying?
I think there should be a collective effort to unite consciousness of African people with black people of America, to tie together a energy that people might not want, but have to accept that we are from a lineage of those people, and that there is something that exists in us that's there, and we deserve it. And the people of Africa, real talk, should help us. We should be reaching, and we should both be reaching, right? Because that is the solidarity that I feel like
Well,
would not hurt in the journey.
Yeah. Well, the African Union just created Region 6. So Region 6 is anybody who was in the diaspora can apply for African Union citizenship now. Yeah, and so they are reaching forward. But the thing is that one of the things that I've learned about this country is that they need us here more than they want to admit.
Okay.
We saw that during the Great Migration. When Black people started leaving the South en masse, they started making laws criminalizing them leaving.
Bruh. Begging them to come back.
Begging them to come back.
Begging them to come back.
Yeah, and so when I start to see about us in solidarity, I say this. The idea of reparations, it means to make an amends, to make an amends. They ain't even said they sorry. They haven't even acknowledged they did us harm. I mean, officially.
I thought Bill Clinton did that.
No. I'm not talking about this idea of
oh, I get what you're saying.
I'm talking about you have to say that yes, like they came out and said something about Tulsa. They came out and said these individual atrocities. I'm talking about we created a culture system to deprive you of your labor. Our country's wealth was built off of your ancestors, ADIs, American descendants of slave, was built off of their labor. And as a token of that, we want to say we are sorry. That's what I mean. Like, we have not acknowledged it. Like Malcolm said, if I put a knife in your back 6 inches and I move it out 1 inch, that ain't progress.
No.
If I take it out 6 inches, that ain't progress. Progress is when I begin to heal the wound that the knife blow gave.
Yeah.
And they ain't even acknowledging there's a knife in our back.
Right.
They're just taking more from us. Right.
Exactly.
They're just taking more from us because, again, we do have, unfortunately, Black men leading that charge, man, of taking. Right. Tim Scott come out, say no reparations.
He in a something place.
He ain't the only person. You dig what I'm saying? And the other thing is, we have Clarence Thomas in the Supreme Court. No reparations. People don't understand. There's no reparations at the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court is not even set up to give you reparations. You dig what I'm saying? The government is not going to willingly give that to you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. No. So you have to set the wheels in motion of the system in order for that to happen. HR 40 coming out of committee was historic. You know, because it sat for 40 years. You know what I'm saying? So that moment was historic because we had the people in place to do that.
Yeah, and they talk about this token like we just got an anti-lynching bill after 200 years. Like, they just passed the bill that makes it a federal crime to beat somebody after all these years, and then they want you to be happy that they passed a law after how many people have been lynched.
Yeah,
but so what I see happening though is we have to do it unconventionally. Because I think, like, for example, student loan forgiveness helps Black people more than anybody else.
Yeah, right.
Primarily Black women, because Black people have more outstanding loan debt than anybody else in this country.
And you said Black women specifically, and I think you're right.
They do. Black women have
Black
more.
women are the ones that's getting the most degrees.
They're getting the degrees and stuff. But why?
Because Black men go into more manufacturing jobs. They go drive trucks. They do that stuff.
They get, and we should, but we also get pushed out. We get pushed out because I found that in general, girls are more timid and can sit through classroom situations and sedimentary situations. Hold on. And I mean, as far as being able to identify ADHD in boys and girls.
Yeah, that was a problem. But where we got to the point of, I just wanted to make sure that we clear on something. Where we got to the point of Black women getting more degrees than Black men is because of the jobs. So the degrees that Black women generally get are nursing degrees or hospitality degrees, law degrees, because they made less money. So even though black men went into these fields, they made more money. So, and a lot of women, black women, were going into these fields when there were high unemployment rates as well. And who was mostly affected by the high unemployment rates, right? It was black men, because black men
Men.
got laid off of these,
Right.
these manufacturing jobs. And
Right.
once, once a lot of the manufacturing jobs dried up, you know what I'm saying? Black men didn't make the change to then go to college and get a degree or change career fields, you know what I'm saying, as quickly as black women did. You know what I'm saying? So black men have a lot of catching up to do. Really, black men need to go into fields that are considered female dominated, which is teaching, which is going into nursing, which is going into the correctional facilities. You know what I'm saying? And things of that nature.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. I agree. You know what, guys? We just hit 40. Y'all want to keep
We did,
going?
yeah. And most of that information came from this book, When Work Disappears. When Work Disappears, the
That's
world.
dope stuff,
man.
man. You know what? We're sharper than iron in here.
That should be called, when capitalists want to make more profits, they send the jobs overseas because they understand that labor is exploitation. Yeah, because you got to remember, it's exploitation of labor. America is built on labor exploitation, and that has not gone anywhere.
Labor exploitation. We
That's
still
it.
operate under the same slave system.
Yeah.
We
And all
still,
Right.
every job you
Right.
have still operate under
Every single one.
of making sure you get to work on time, making sure
Get
you're
there.
going to work at every minute of the day.
Yep.
Hey, Rockefeller said, "I want a nation of workers, not thinkers."
Workers, man.
Yes.
And so what I see happening, though, is that one of the things that we're realizing is that we're creating our own spaces, because intellectual property is skyrocketing. Like there's a dude right now in his basement with a TikTok channel that's making more money than most people making in a year on like 4 videos.
That's crazy.
But that's what I'm saying. The intellectual property market is so powerful, because what we're realizing is that you, the consumer, now is your time. Anybody who can capture your time now can monetize it. Monetize it, because now that I can monetize your time, what I find out is that, well, who's the product? You are the product.
Yeah.
Well, what you got to say, what you feel, what you think, your perspective has become the product. And so when I think of it to this way, and I think that's what I started to see happening with a lot of these individuals who are getting platforms, but they're not knowledgeable. Like you can give them a microphone, but they ain't pushing the cause forward.
Nah,
they ain't pushing it.
There's no progress, man, because we've elevated opinion to the level of fact. You know.
Yeah.
And as long as I can make you feel good, like you're saying, I
say, what is Candace Owens playing? I say Candace. What is her playing? Because she identifies problem, but like, well, get off the Democratic plantation. Okay, now what? Now what? I mean, my plan can't just be vote for the Republican.
That can't be the plan, man.
That can't be.
Just can't simply
be. Well, it's like this. Well, look, get off the plantation, and we'll figure it out the rest as we go.
Man, I just can't. It's crazy, man. I mean, even I'm a hard leftist, and I'm just like, yo, just voting Democrat. That can't be the plan.
It can't even be the backup.
That can't even be the plan. Like, yo, what's the plan, dog? What's the plan?
I think, man, Kelvin, he talked about it, man. It's like creating an idea of collective conscious, because shared ideology and shared struggle pushes us much further, because we don't have a block anymore.
Yeah,
it's like, look, we can identify how we got here, but we need interdisciplinary studies. We need sociologists. We need psychologists. That's
what I'm doing. That's what I feel like I'm doing right now.
Well, we need all that, because if we don't get all of these specialties, because when you research a problem, you have to start with the origin. And so often we want to start halfway through the book and not realize, it's like we read the book got 10 chapters. We start on chapter 6, and then thinking like, oh, this is a good book, but you don't even know the first 5 chapters.
Yeah, you don't know what you got to do.
And so interdisciplinary studies is important because one of the things that I'm seeing happening is that we have a lot of Black, and this is in the intellectual, the scholars. You have Black scholars who disagree about strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could talk to Dr. Ibram X. Kendi and think that his philosophy, though, is that we can't start with the premise that there's something wrong with Black people.
Mm.
We have to stop that thinking, because if we start with that thinking, we're going to disadvantage the conversation.
Yes.
But you got Dr. Joy DeGroy, who's like, look, we got post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yeah, man.
And we got that. And so how do you reconcile these two ideologies, these philosophies? We have to reconcile that both can be true.
Both can be right. Yeah, both can be right.
However, they can be right if we get a diagnostic criteria.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think the people who traumatized you are going to study the impacts of that trauma on you? No. You think the people who beat you are going to ask you how you feeling today?
Yeah.
No, they just beat you. They're not interested in identifying why you have these problems. Yeah, and I think until we become the psychologists, and then we begin to make studies and do analysis and comparing and looking at data to say, well, you know what? The criteria for bipolar, every Black person in America can fit the criteria. If you grew up in a country and your dad was in jail and your mama was on drugs, then you didn't have, your poles was out of line.
Mm.
Your poles were not synced. You were shifting. And I think the psychological aspect of this is what we don't talk about enough. And because I think that the Skinner, the behaviorist psychology has dominated the last 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're all behaviorists. We don't want to look at the brain to study behavior. Let's just look at the actions. Don't get off the brain. Look over here.
Yeah,
so the cognitive psychology about neurology of why the chemicals in your brain and what trauma does to you, and even how racism affects your mental health. People don't look into that. There's actually studies now about people who, because of course they're Black, and they want to look at the impacts of racism on health.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no white people gonna be studying that.
Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, I gotta roll out.
You're right. They have no reason to do it. And with that, guys.
All right.
You guys are the best, man.
I'm gonna hit you up, man, because I want you on, dog.
Hey, man, whenever, man. You know, I ain't hard to find.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Tay. All right, dog.